Welcome to this short webinar. My name is Matthew Burrows and I'll be your moderator today. Over the next 15 minutes, you will learn how to get ahead of the tech skills shortage, which Gartner tells us will cause 75% of organizations to experience visible business disruptions by 2020 and therefore damage the reputation of their brand. Gartner also tells us that IT leaders must develop the skills of the talent they already have. They then reflect that most companies don't have an accurate inventory of the available skills of their current IT workforce, so this must be a first step. Having the right people with the right skills at appropriate levels is essential for all organizations. And as Gartner reports, the first step is answering the "what skills do we have" question. We then need to take a view on what skills we need and address any gaps. Surely it's an unacceptable risk for any senior leader if they're unable to answer these two skills questions. I'm going to hand over to my colleagues Paul and Graham, who will give you a quick overview of how SkillsTx using Sophia delivers this value and the sequence of events to get you there.
Thanks very much, Matthew. So just before I take us through a little more detail, let's just run a very quick poll to see what the current challenges out there for our attendees. So you'll see this appear at the top of the screen in the control panel, and please feel free to vote now and we'll have a look at the results when they come in. Okay, right, so we have a result. So we'll end the poll and we'll just share those results. Okay, so we can see, and not unexpectedly because it ties in with the Gartner report, that the majority are expecting to have some impact from digital skill gaps. So it means that what we're going to talk about in the next few slides and the presentation is actually going to be very relevant from that point of view. As Matthew mentioned, one of the things that we need to do is run through a sequence of events to get the data. What we need to be very clear on is that the decisions that we make using the data we can rely upon. So we run through a sequence of events to get the data into the system, and that starts with planning and communication. We run very structured self-assessments. We have optional 360 feedback and assessor-led validations to just up the quality even more. And then we can build role profiles through 4 different mechanisms in our system to achieve that. And finally, we end up with data that we can use for analytics. So that's a sequence of events. So we're going to dive straight in, and I'm going to use my sample skill profile. So I'm logged into what we call the SkillsTx Planner. And what I can see here is my Sophia skill profile with all of Sophia embedded into the system. So one of the things that we've mentioned up front is the employee engagement aspect. If we need to make better use of the skills we've got, we need to think about engagement and retention. One of the things that I'm able to do here, which is a particularly engaging aspect of the system, is the ability to select my current job. And you can see here I've got Chief Digital Officer, and I can overlay what that job requirement is. But also I have the option to look at other jobs that are available in the organization, see percentage matches, and even select a future job, overlay it with my profile, and maybe have a discussion with my management with regard to a career move in that direction. So a lot of empowerment provided down at that employee level. The other thing which is particularly important from the point of view of reducing the sleepless nights is to ensure that I address skill gaps between current and indeed future jobs. So I have an action plan capability in here. So this is my go-to as far as my career development path is concerned. I'm currently looking at the skill gaps between my self-assessed profile and future job, and you can see quite a few down here. So a fair bit of work to move in that direction. But over on the right-hand side is where I actually plan to address those skill gaps. So very easy. I click on a focus button. Down here I say, yes, I'm going to address governance. I give the custom action a name, we decide what type of action it is, set target dates and duration, and add it to my action plan. Obviously, we'd expect that to be a collaborative exercise with somebody that's got the ability to make those actions happen, either from a budget point of view or making time available. And the other thing that we have is the ability for the organization to predefine actions mapped against Sophia again, and the system will automatically go find predefined actions that match my skill gaps. And indeed, we've actually got options there to load in third-party predefined actions from training providers. So whistle-stop tour of the employee side of things. Hopefully what that has done is give you an indication of how an employee would engage with the system. And indeed, the system will actually send notifications as I miss deadlines for to-do dates and such like. All right, so the other aspect of what we use the data for is in the analytics. So I'm going to use a couple of scenarios here. I'm going to take you through fairly quickly. So we've answered the question, what skills do we have? And what I'm looking at here is the exact representation of that. It's showing me all of the people and all of the skills. So if I need to put a team together for maybe an agile project, and we need some consultancy, and we need some information security, maybe some innovation, up here in the top, I've now got a list of all of the people that have those skills that I can now go and engage with and see if we have them available for that project. So a super quick way of getting right to the skills that you need for the particular task in hand. Let's now look at it from a business risk point of view. So quickly going to go and have a look at this force graph. And this is immediately showing me 3 business risks. I know that because these people have got a current job, but they're less than a 26% match. So whichever way you look at that, there's a risk to the business because these people are being asked to perform a job that they really don't have the skills for. But secondly, these people must be in a terrible space because they must be outside the comfort zone every single day. And it happens, you know, people move through a promotion path and end up, you know, not having the opportunity to acquire the skills that the current job requires. So let's look at worst case here. So the 17.5%, somebody called Carol. So what I'm now going to do is go and have a look at Carol's skill gaps and see why that percentage is so low. So we're going to click on Carol, and there we go. I can see the skill gaps, as indeed Carol can when she logs into Planner Console, yes. And we can, of course, look to upskill. So put some programs in place that's going to help Carol up that percentage. On the other hand, what we might do is say maybe Carol has got something else within the organization that's a better match. So I'm going to come in here and just knock off some filters, just zoom in a little bit for you. And what we've got here are all of the jobs in the system that Carol has got a percentage match against. And I can see that there's one line here that's a little bit thicker than the others, which probably means, well, it does mean that it's a higher match. So I'm going to click on that. And here we go. Network analyst is a much better match for Carol's skills. And interestingly enough, I can actually see from these filters that Carol has already selected that as her future job. So she got there before us. She spotted a job in the system that was better suited to her skills and would yeah, make better use of the experience that she's gathered through her career. So very quick run through there of how we can use data to engage with the workforce, to tie in with what Gartner's saying that we need to make better use. And then, of course, we've just seen it from the organizational perspective where we've aggregated the data and we can see the big picture. So thank you very much for your time. And at this point, we'll just see if we've got any questions. So I'm going to go back to Graham and see what we've got, Graham. Are there any questions that we have?
Yeah, we've got a question here about who can see and edit my skill profile.
Great stuff. Yeah, well, we're big believers that you own your skill profile. We have capabilities for managers and team leaders to view, but the only person that can edit your self-assessed skill profile is you. So that's it.
Okay, and another one, what about my specialist skills like C+ or Oracle?
Absolutely. So I'll have a quick look at this actually. So one of the things that we're conscious of, Sophia is an agnostic framework, quite rightly. But what we've done is provide the ability through the administration console to add what we call skill attributes. So wherever I see these three little dots, it's telling me there's more information. If I click on it, in this case, it's showing me that, you know, we would prefer Corbit 5 as our IT governance methodology. And if I've got it, I can click it and we can add it to jobs. So that's how we deal with specialist skills.
I have a final one here, Paul. If you use data for career planning and decision making, how do you ensure it's reliable?
Good one again. I suppose that really takes us back to what we were looking at with regard to how we capture the data. We've put a lot of time and effort into the way our self-assessment works. We built 360 capability in there as well. And importantly, we've got procedures built into the system that automates validations, normally done by our partner networks using Sophia accredited consultants. But, you know, we've got a number of options and, yeah, you know, all of them driving towards that reliability of the data. So any more on that, Graham?
That's all we got, Paul.
Fantastic, thanks. Okay, Matthew, back over to you. And we'll finalise the webinar.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Graham, for that. And thank you to all of our attendees for your time today. There's obviously a lot more we could show you, but this was deliberately a very quick overview. If we've tweaked your interests and you'd like to know more, then we'd be more than happy to get you started with a quick discovery call and a free trial. You can hit the Get Started Now button on our website, or you can use the QR code that's on the screen. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much once again for joining us today, and that concludes the session.